Fables of La Fontaine. The Bat and the Two Weasels. A bat one day into a weasel's hole went boldly. Well, it was a special blunder. The weasel, hating mice with heart and soul, ran up to eat the stranger. Where's the wonder? "How do you dare," he said, "to meet me here, when you and I are foes and always were? Ain't you a mouse? Lie not, and cast off fear. You are, or I'm no weasel, have a care." "Now, pardon me," replied the bat, "I'm really anything but that. What? I a mouse? The wicked tattlers lie. Thanks to the maker of all human things, I'm a bird, here are my wings. Long live the cleavers of the sky." These arguments seemed good, and so the weasel let the poor wretch go. But 2 days later, though it seems absurd, the simpleton into another hole intruded. This second weasel hated every bird, and darted on the rash intruder. "There you mistake," the bat exclaimed. "Look at me. Ain't I rashly blamed? What makes a bird? Its feathers? Yes, I'm a mouse. Long live the rats, and Jupiter take all the cats." So twice, by his supreme address, this bat was saved thanks to finesse. Many there are who, changing uniform, have laughed at every danger and intrigue. The wise man cries, to escape the shifting storm, "Long live the king," or "Glory to the league." Well, there you have it. And what's all this about? Well, to recap, a bat flies into a weasel's hole, the weasel catches him, and hating mice says, "I'm going to eat you." So the bat says, I'm not a mouse. Look, I have wings. I'm obviously a bird." So the weasel thinks about it and says, oh, sorry, and lets him go. And then a couple of days later, the bat flies into another weasel hole and once again gets caught by a different weasel. And this weasel hates birds. So the bat says, "I'm not a bird. Look, what makes a bird? Feather. I don't have any feathers. I'm a mouse. Long live the rats." So this weasel said, "Oh, okay, well, you can go then." So this happens in real life sometimes. So how do we learn from this? Well, be careful how you identify yourself. Problem with calling yourself an A or calling yourself a B is twofold. One, when you say you are X, you know what you mean by that. But the person listening to you, they have their own idea of what X means. And if they hate X and they like Y, maybe their idea of what X means is very different from what you mean when you say you are X, and then they're going to judge you harshly. Also, if you say you're X, well, definitions change. You say you're X, and then 2 months later, the definition of what X means has shifted, and now it means something different than what you meant by X. So if people know that you identify as X, they're going to assume that you're this new definition of X, which may not apply at all. I know that's very vague, but it's difficult to express. Also, when you identify as a certain certain thing. For instance, in politics, if you identify as either conservative or liberal, you may not agree with everything conservative and disagree with everything liberal, even if you call yourself a conservative, or vice versa. If you call yourself a liberal, you may agree with some points that the liberals put forward, but you disagree with others. But if you say that you're a liberal and you're speaking to a liberal or a conservative, they're going to assume that you agree with all of the ideas and policies. And if you say you're a conservative, they will do the same thing. Now, this fable reminds me of the history of France when Napoleon overthrew the king and became emperor of the French Empire. So when Napoleon and the king's armies were fighting, nobody knew who was going to win. So if you followed the king and then Napoleon defeated you, after the war, anybody who followed the king obviously would be captured and probably either put to death or put in prison. But if they changed the uniform, they could say, no, I was supporting Napoleon all along. And unfortunately, or fortunately, whatever, first the king was defeated by Napoleon, and then later on, Napoleon was defeated by the king. So again, everybody who followed Napoleon, they would have been captured or put to death. So by changing the uniform, no, I always supported the king. I've been loyal to the king the whole time. So these people were able to avoid capture, imprisonment, and possibly being put to death by using their wits to try to survive the situation. But this applies today as well, because if you align yourself too closely to one particular side, that could cause trouble for you. And if you align yourself to the other side too strongly, that could cause trouble to you as well. And because these definitions shift, you might identify a certain way, and as time goes by, that doesn't apply to you anymore. But everybody's going to think it does because you've defined yourself that way. So, again, as we spoke about in a previous fable, sometimes it's good to be the gray man or the gray stone. If you're black, you stand out and you're a potential target. If you're white, you stand out and you're a potential target. But if you're the gray man, the gray stone, you blend in and you're not so much of a target. You're camouflaged. Same with this. Better to not align yourself too strongly one way or the other, but you can pass as either. So if you meet certain people and they're like, oh, are you one of us or are you one of them? Well, you can use finesse and kind of avoid some of the danger by, yes, of course I'm with you guys, more or less. And if you meet the other crowd, yes, of course I'm with you guys, pretty much. Something like that. Anyway, some of these fables that are not in the book are not as applicable to modern life, or if they are, you have to think about it a little more. A lot of the fables that are in the book are more easy to identify, which is why they are in the book. Anyway, if you have any comments, any questions down below, till next time, goodbye. Love you.